In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. The doctrine of the Trinity. When it comes to the nature of God, beliefs differ significantly across the various denominations of Christianity. The most popular belief, promoted by the vast majority of churches in the world, is that God has a divine nature. This is the doctrine known as the Trinity, which defines God as one being who exists eternally as three distinct persons: the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Put simply, it is one God in three persons. The persons of the Trinity are not to be confused, so the Father is not the Son is not the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit is not the Father. All three persons of the Trinity are said to be co-equal and co-eternal, and each is God, whole and entire. However, each person is said to have a different role when it comes to how God relates to the world. For example, in God's plan of salvation for mankind, the Father is said to have sent the Son, Jesus, who died on the cross for the sins of mankind. The Holy Spirit is said to sanctify believers, inspiring Christians in their day-to-day lives. A key element of the doctrine of the Trinity is the incarnation of God. This teaches that the second person of the Trinity, the Son, took on human flesh in the bodily form of Jesus. Thus, when Mary gave birth to Jesus, God entered into the creation. Jesus is said to be the God-man, who has two natures, one divine, one human. Jesus is said to be both fully God and fully man. As a result of the incarnation, humanity has been permanently incorporated into the Godhead. The Son will forever have an inseparable divine and human nature. Jesus' humanity is not something that can be discarded or dissolved back into the Godhead. Even after his crucifixion, resurrection, and ascension back to the Father, Jesus will forever exist in heaven as a glorified man, albeit God at the same time. As Muslims, we are obligated to believe in the pure monotheism of Islam that teaches God is one, not only in essence but also in personhood, and that God is distinct from human beings. So, it took me a long time to grasp the Trinitarian concept of God. It turns out that I'm not alone in struggling to grasp the Trinity. According to scholars of Christianity and defenders of the Trinity, many Christians who profess to believe in the Trinity do not understand the doctrine. Dr. James White, one of the foremost apologists for the Trinity today, wrote the following: "For many Christians, the Trinity is an abstract principle, a confusing and difficult doctrine that they believe, although they are not really sure why in their honest moments. This is evident when one discusses the doctrine with the average Christian. In my experiences of interacting with Christians, a common way of trying to explain the Trinity is the use of elaborate analogies. The following examples are quite commonly put forward. The Trinity is like the three parts of an egg: the shell, the white, and the yolk. The Trinity is like three forms of water: ice, liquid, and vapor. The Trinity is like a man who can exist as a father, a son, and a husband, all at the same time. Such analogies, however, are highly problematic. The egg analogy doesn't work because the doctrine of the Trinity states that each person, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, is fully God. One wouldn't say that the shell is fully an egg, the white is fully an egg, or that the yolk is fully an egg. It is only the totality of the three parts, shell, white, and yolk, that make a complete egg. The water analogy doesn't work either because it implies that God first manifested himself as Father, then as the Son, and then as the Holy Spirit. These forms are temporary and never coexist, thus violating the principle of the doctrine that the persons eternally coexist. Finally, the man analogy also fails to encompass the doctrine of the Trinity. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit aren't simply three functions or roles of God. They are said to be three distinct persons. The simple fact is that no analogy will ever be complete. Although this is not appreciated by the average Christian that I encounter on a day-to-day basis, it is something that is fully acknowledged by Christian theologians who freely admit that the Trinity cannot be explained. Many theologians have abandoned all hope of deriving a deep understanding of the doctrine and have resigned themselves to classifying it as a holy mystery. The Catholic Church states, "The mystery of the Most Holy Trinity is the central mystery of Christian faith and life." The Catholic Church defines mystery in theology as something that remains veiled in darkness. The Vatican Council has explained the meaning to be attributed to the term mystery in theology. It lays down that a mystery is a truth which we are not merely incapable of discovering apart from divine revelation, but which, even when revealed, remains hidden by the veil of faith and enveloped, so to speak, by a kind of darkness. Reconciling the plurality of the Godhead, a threeness within a monotheistic framework, continues to be one of the great challenges faced by Trinitarians. If Trinitarians embraced the polytheism that is inherent in the doctrine and explained it for what it really is, three gods and not one, then there would be no confusion. The doctrine is inexplicable because Trinitarians try to reconcile a concept of threeness into a monotheistic context, which does not and cannot fit. How can anyone or anything be three things and one thing all at the same time? The fact is that the Trinity is something that believers must accept on blind faith. It cannot be rationalized. The doctrine of the Trinity is also problematic when we consider the purpose of revelation, which boils down to guidance. The books of God were revealed in order to guide mankind. If guidance results in confusion or misguidance, then it defeats the purpose of revelation. If the Trinity were some inconsequential aspect of Christian theology, then perhaps its mystery wouldn't be an issue. But it isn't. So entrenched has the belief in the Trinity become that it is the litmus test for whether or not a person is considered to be orthodox. Rejecting any aspect of the doctrine is enough for a Christian to be condemned as a heretic. Evangelical scholar Harold Linsell and seminary professor Charles Woodbridge wrote the following: "The mind of man cannot fully understand the mystery of the Trinity. He who has tried to understand the mystery fully will lose his mind, but he who would deny the Trinity will lose his soul." There you have it. Deny the Trinity and you lose your soul. This reveals a fundamental paradox with the doctrine. Why would God reveal something that cannot be fully comprehended and yet tie our salvation to it? What should we make of all this in light of the purpose of revelation? Revelation is an opening up, an uncovering. How can the Trinity be a revelation when the most learned of biblical scholars write that it is a mystery? That is double talk, which directly conflicts with the very purpose of revelation and guidance. Today, faith and the Trinity are synonymous in Christian thought. In fact, they are so intertwined that you would think the Trinity must have always been the dominant belief going all the way back to the early church. As we are going to see, this could not be further from the truth. All prayers and thanks be to Allah.